Yeah, it's early. Well, it's good because we got oh, it sounds weird. Lot to cover. When I started this, I didn't know how much there was to cover in this. So, all right, who laid out last week? You laid out last week, man. By the way, it'd be hard to top this morning. That's up in the top 5 ever, and I've heard a bunch. Some of y'all have heard years and years and years more from that man, but that was great this morning. I was upset when he quit because it was like, man, it's just now getting good. All those, I mean, it was a fantastic message this morning. So thank you. I was very intrigued and was disappointed when he said, "Let's pray." I thought, let's hear more. There's more. We can hear more. So in dealing with Balaam, I had always, I'll start back from kind of how I came to this. I knew what Balaam did, and I knew he had a talking donkey, and I knew he was not a good man. I didn't realize the emphasis that the New Testament put on him just in 3 or 4 verses. And as I was reading, we read at night, and as we were reading through it, I kept waiting for Balaam to do what I knew that Balaam did. And I never could find it. Nope. I never found him committing that particular act that we'll get to eventually one of these Sundays. But there's a whole lot more that he did do. I'm telling you, I was sitting there trying to think, and you all may have something. Can the Lord speak prophecy through an evil man?
Sure. Yes.
Pharaoh. Do you think the Lord can use the devil's money to do his?
Sure he can.
He used King Cyrus's money to rebuild the temple. What's that? Yeah, I mean, the devil can use evil men, the Lord will use evil men to carry out his purposes, just like he'll use us.
He used Michael all the time.
Right? He can take all situations and work them out for good. But and then I got to thinking about this. As we read tonight, I want you to think about when you read this particular narrative, these particular chapters, we don't see or hear anything about Moses, Aaron, Eleazar, or any of the priests. I think Aaron. Has Aaron already died at this point? Anyway, we're close because they're getting ready to cross. But anyway, you never hear anything about them. You never read anything about them. But what you see is someone behind the scenes trying to stop them. Do you think that goes on in your life today? When people behind the scenes that you have no idea are even there. One of the things that I think a good principal ought to do, a lot of times for his or her teachers, is when sometimes needless conflict or things come about, is that they just shield the teacher from it, and the teacher never even knows. A lot of times that good leaders do that for the people that are underneath them. They shield them from, and they never know anything about it. And someone has stopped the evil or whatever it may be. There are malicious people out there. Whatever it may be, before it ever gets to that person, it's already put to bed. And as you read this, I want you to realize that I have no idea if Moses is even aware. He's obviously aware at some point because he writes the book. But I wonder if at that moment he knew, Balaam's up there trying to curse us. He never records that, so I just wonder, can you imagine all the people that tried to go up against him behind their backs? They were plotting all the time behind the scenes trying to overtake the children of Israel. But when we look in Revelation chapter 2, 2 Peter, and Jude, you realize that this man really sets the example for all false teachers. Because false teachers wouldn't really have a start if they came in boldly professing wrong things, wrong prophecies, things like that. If they just were bold in their rebellion or bold in their heresies, they sneak in. Jude talks about they crept in unawares. That's what these false teachers do. Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, he's talking to the church at Pergamos, and we talked about this a little bit last week. He's talking about what they did well, and now he's going to give them a part of their lives they need to correct. But I have a few things against thee. Behold, thou hast there them, people are there, that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit fornication. I have read that over and over, and I knew what Balaam did. But as I read, I never find where Balaam does that. What I find is Balaam delivering some extraordinary prophecies. I mean, when you read these and hear these, God opened this man's eyes and let him see a lot. And you'd think that when God opening someone's eyes like that and letting them see that there is in fact no way he can curse this people, that he would change. But there's one particular verse I hope to get to tonight that I hope sticks with you. We may get there, we may not. I'll try to figure out where we are. Jude and 2 Peter also talk about that, and every time he's mentioned, it is in the context of false teachers. Okay? To look out, beware. They all heed to the doctrine of Balaam, or to the way of Balaam. Who Balaam, he was glad at the riches of unrighteousness, at the profit and the wages of unrighteousness. So we left off in Numbers 22, around verse 35. Oh yeah, because in verse 34 he's just met the angel of the Lord, and the Lord has rebuked him, and he said, well, Lord, if it pleases you, I will not go. If it displeases you, I will not go with these men. He already knows it displeases the Lord and chooses to go anyway. There is a lot in here, so I cannot just summarize for you, because I think there's too much that we need to hear to go on. So we're going to read through these few chapters, and we'll eventually get there. And the angel of the Lord said unto Balaam, go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee, that thou shalt speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. So God has turned him over to his own way, leading to his own judgment. And we find that a lot. Pharaoh, the same way. Sometimes Pharaoh hardened his own heart, and finally God hardened Pharaoh's heart for him and sent him to his judgment. And we're kind of seeing the same, well, we are seeing the same thing with Balaam here. And so 36, and when Balak had heard that Balaam was come. Remember, how far do you have to travel? Anybody remember? Some 400 miles or so from his hometown down to this area. And it took a while. And they'd already sent one entourage up, and that entourage came back. And Balak sent another one up. So this played out over a period of months, I'm sure. And Balak sees him, and he went out to meet him in the city of Moab, which is on the border of Arnon, which is in the utmost coast, the far coast. And Balak said unto Balaam. Now, listen to this. If you're Balak here, what do you think when you see this man coming? Balaam's coming. Oh. He's coming to curse him. If he's coming, he must have accepted the offer to come and curse Israel. All right, we got to start here. Balak knows he cannot conquer the children of Israel without some kind of supernatural help, because he knows God is on their side, and he cannot do it on his own through sheer might. He said, did I not earnestly send unto thee to call thee? Why didn't you come to me? Wherefore camest thou not unto me? Am I not able indeed to promote thee to honor? Where does the Bible say promotion comes from? The Lord. It comes from God. And Balaam said unto Balak, he's gonna throw a wrench in things right here. He says, lo, I have come unto you. I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? that the word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak. Whatever God puts in my mouth to say, whatever He tells me to say, that I will speak. Now this is supposed to be an evil man. But he says, whatever God puts in my heart, that I will say. And Balaam went with Balak, and they came unto Kirjath-Huzoth, and Balak offered oxen and sheep, and sent to Balaam to the princes that were with him. That's an interesting verse, interesting little nod there. You'll see from here on, Balaam orders the sacrifices, but here, Balak offered oxen and sheep. Some commentaries, I don't know what a lot of this, but it was interesting. I think if you've got a ryrie, your commentary will talk about that in divination or in sorcery, the livers of animals were used. So that could have been one of the possibilities, that he offered up these offerings of these oxen and sheep to send the remains to Balaam to use in his sorcery. And it came to pass that on the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him to the high places of Baal, that there he might see the utmost part of the people. He took him to a high place where Baal was worshipped, up on a mountain. You wanted to be in a high place because that was closer to your God, whatever it was. And he looks out. Do you think he sees all 2 million? No, he probably just sees part of them. You'll see in one part of this, he sees about a quarter of them. So he's looking out at all these people. He sees what's going on. You look down at those people, and they probably have no idea that this man's conspiring for a man to curse them as a nation. But God is fighting on their side. And we'll start chapter 23 here. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me 7 oxen and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had spoken, and Balak and Balaam offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. Is there anything unusual about that?
They got no business offering anything. They're not priests as such.
They're not priests. Do you think that Balaam is offering to the true God or to Baal? I believe in his intentions, maybe in his belief, in his own mind, he believed. Well, what's the number?
7.
How many altars were in Jerusalem? 1.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can soup this offering up a little bit. Let's see if we can really get God's attention here. Let's do 7. 7 altars. We'll do it right. You never see more than 1 altar. Not to the living God, not in any particular place. It's 1 altar. There's only room for 1 altar. There's only 1 sacrifice. Okay? Not 7. And Balaam said unto Balak, stand by this burnt offering, and I will go. Peradventure that the Lord will come to me. And whatsoever he showeth me, I will tell you. And he went to a high place. He goes off by himself to pray about it, I guess. And he's hoping. He's hoping the Lord will let him curse this people. Why?
The money.
He's going to get paid if he's allowed to do that. He says over and over and over, you're going to see this, that whatever God says, that is what I tell you. In case of failure, who's to blame? God. In case it doesn't work, Balaam's got a scapegoat. It's God's fault. It's not mine, Balak. He won't let me. So whether he truly believes or whether he's using God as a scapegoat, we don't really know. But either way, he's got the blame put on God if his cursing or attempt to curse fails. Balak's obviously a powerful man. He might take out a bounty on my head. He might do all sorts of unknown evils to me if I can't do this. But if I place the blame on God, then I'm in the clear. Okay? And God met Balaam. And he said unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, Return unto Balak, and thus you shall speak. And he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by the burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab. And he took up this parable, or his parable, or prophecy, so to speak, and said, Balak, the king of Moab, hath brought me from Aram out of the mountains of the east, saying, Come, curse me, Jacob, come, defy Israel. Curse Jacob for me. Defy Israel. Curse them. He's kind of giving him a little, a little history here. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, the number of the fourth part of Israel? Who can number a fourth of them that they probably see there? He's looking out over them. Now look at this. Let me die what? The death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. Who's he speaking about? Jacob. Let my last end be like his. He wants to be numbered among the righteous at what? At his death. But he doesn't what? He doesn't want to live among the righteous while he's alive. He doesn't want to live the way of the righteous while he's alive. But he certainly wants the accolades and the honor and everything found of being righteous at his death. Think there are people like that today that look out and they see Christian folk and they say, Lord, let me die the way they do. Let me die in and amongst the righteous. But they don't want to take for themselves what makes the Christian righteous. They don't want to live the life. They don't want to accept the sacrifice. I think deep down maybe they wish they could, but they just won't surrender. Balaam here, God's given him every opportunity to just call this off and go back, repent, go back home and live righteous, and you can live and die like the righteous do. But Balaam, there's just something there. There's just something there. For the love of money is the root of all evil. He wants paid. And we're going to see he's willing to do anything to get it. Anybody got anything so far? Anybody got a thought so far? Okay, so he says, let my last end be like this. But he doesn't want to live like it. And Balak said unto Balaam, What have you done? He's probably pretty angry here. We read it, What hast thou done unto me? Oh, no. Balak is enraged. What have you done? I took you here to curse mine enemies, and behold, you've blessed them altogether. It didn't go the way that Balak planned. So, and he answered and said, Must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? Must I not say what God tells me to say? He's straddling the fence big time, isn't he? He's got God over here and the world over here, and he's trying to make it work, and he won't be able to. He won't be able to. And Balak said unto him, he said, Okay, come, I pray thee. Come with me unto another place, from there you may see them there. That thou shalt see but the utmost part of them, and you won't see them all. See them all. And curse me them from there. Let's go to another place, Balaam. Let's look out over this group of people and let's curse them from there. And he brought them into the field of Zophim, to the top of Pisgah. A lot of people are in commentary say this is Mount Nebo. And they built 7 altars and offered a bullock and a ram on 7 altars. And he said unto Balak, Stand here while I meet the Lord yonder. Okay, Balaam, this didn't work before. And you're going to try it again. You're going to try your sorceries again. And God comes in. And when he came to him, behold, he stood in the burnt offering, the princes of Moab with him, and Balak said unto him what the Lord hath spoken. Verse 18, and he took his parable and said, rise up, Balak, and hear. Hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor. Now look here. We're about to get to some good stuff. This is good stuff that's coming. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and he shall not do it? Has he said something and not done it? Or has he spoken something and not made it good? The answer is built into the question, really. No. Behold, I have received commandment to what? Bless. I've received commandment to bless. And he has blessed, and I cannot reverse it.
That's right.
I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld. Now this was interesting to me. Look what he says. He has not beheld iniquity in Jacob. Well, for the past few years, there was a lot of iniquity. But what hides our iniquity? Blood of Christ. Grace. God's grace. God's promise to fulfill what he said he's going to do. Behold, or he hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither has he seen perverseness in Israel. Maybe at this point, they finally heeded. They finally took notice of what God says. Oh, they're going to mess up here very shortly. They're going to mess up again. But at this point, he has not seen perverseness in Israel, and the Lord his God is with him. And the shout of a king is among them. God has brought them out of Egypt, and he hath, as it were, the strength of what? This is interesting. A wild ox. Who's got another word? Unicorn. Wild ox, unicorn. Translate it what you will. Powerful beast. That's what we're just going to leave it there. We're not going to get into all that stuff.
Oh, come on.
Powerful horned beast. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, what hath God wrought? Behold, the people shall rise up a great lion, and lift himself up as a young lion. He shall not lie down until he eat of his prey, and drink the blood of the slain. And Balak said unto him, listen, neither curse them nor bless them. If you're not going to curse them, just stop blessing them. Can we agree on that? If you're not going to curse them, don't bless them. Don't speak blessings and prophesy blessings to them, about them, and unto them. Don't do that. I'd rather you not do anything. If you can't say anything bad, don't say anything at all. Right? No, I know Bambi, Thumper says if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all. But Balak's saying, look, if you can't say anything bad about them, just hush. Be quiet. Don't say anything else. But Balaam answered and said unto Balak, did I not tell you all that the Lord speaketh that I must do? If you read this in casual passing, you think Balaam's a pretty good guy. He's taking a stand. He's not cursing. He's not giving in. But we do find later that he's got the appearance, a form of godliness, so to speak. And Balak said unto Balaam, come, I pray thee, I will bring you to another place. Peradventure, maybe it will please God that you may curse them from there, or curse me them from thence. And Balak brought Balaam to the top of Peor, that looketh toward Jeshimon. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 bullocks, and 7 rams. And Balak did as he said, and he offered a bullock and a ram, and upon every altar. But look here. What does he not do this time? What has he done? Every time that's been done so far, what has Balaam done? He stepped off to the side, went to pray about it, and then he's come back with a message from the Lord. But here, he doesn't do that. He has maybe seen that his sorcery and his divination is not going to work, and immediately he said, and when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not, as the other times, to seek for enchantments, but he set his face toward the wilderness. He did not go this time. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel abiding in his tents, according to their tribes, and the Spirit of God came upon him. From this place, what does he have a view of? A huge multitude of them, because he can see them abiding in their what? In their tents and by their tribes. And when he sees this miracle of God, God says, I'm going to open your eyes and show you something miraculous right here. I never knew. I've heard this prophecy, but I never knew where it came from or who spoke it. Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel abiding in the tents. Going on to verse 3, and he took up his parable, his prophecy. Does anybody have oracle? Some may say oracle. The prophecy, and said, Balaam, son of Beor, hath said, and the man whose eyes are opened hath said. He hath said, which heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes opened. How godly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. As the valleys are, they spread forth, as gardens by the riverside, as the trees in line aloes, which the Lord hath planted, as cedar trees beside the waters. Each organism listed there is doing what? It's flourishing because it's got its what? Water. Its source of water. And in the same way, Israel is flourishing because they have their God, their living water there. As they flourish in their dependence on God, they flourish. As these plants flourish. How goodly... Oh, we're on verse 7. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. Does anybody remember Agag? Huh? You had... he's the one that Saul allowed to stay. He killed. Oh, and who was the prophet? Nathan? Was it Nathan or Samuel that came? Samuel. And killed him because he said, why is it I hear bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle? Because they'd let the best live and they let the king live. And Saul said, well, I just kept the best. But God said what? Kill them all. He'll be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. God brought him forth out of Egypt. He has it the strength of a unicorn. He shall eat up the nations of his enemies, and shall break their bones, and pierce them through with his arrows. He couched, he lay down as a lion, as a great lion. Who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesses thee, and cursed is he that curses thee. Now this is saying, you better not mess with them, because God's on their side, and they will rise to power. But we get some more. And Balaam's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he smote his hands together, and said unto Balaam, I called thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, you have now blessed them 3 times. 3 times you have blessed them. Therefore now, flee to your place. I thought to promote you to a place of great honor, but lo, the Lord hath kept me back from honor, or kept thee back from honor. And Balaam said unto Balak. Basically, Balak said, Your gods kept you from the honor I can give you, from the place in this world I can give you. Your gods kept it from you. And Balaam says, spake I not also to thy messengers when you sent them unto me, saying, if Balak would give me his house of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of the Lord to do either good or bad of my own mind. But what the Lord saith, that I will speak. I told you, before I came, I will only say what God says to me. God spoke powerful prophecies through this man, and this man repeated them and blessed Israel. And now behold, I go unto my people, and come therefore, and I will advertise thee what this people shall do to thy people in the latter days. Oh, this gets good right here. Did you hear what he said? I'll read that again, maybe a little plainer. And now behold, I will go unto my people. Come therefore, Balak, come and listen. And I will advertise to you what this people shall do to your people in latter days. And he took up this parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, hath said, and the man whose eyes were opened hath said. He's identifying himself. He is Balaam, the son of Beor, and he is also the man whose eyes were opened. He hath said, which had heard the words of God the Most High, and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance and having his eyes opened. Oh, this gets good. I shall see him, but what? Not now. I shall behold him, but not now. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. And Edom shall be a possession, Seir shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. What do we got here? Who is the star out of Jacob?
Only one star.
Only one star. Only one scepter. This man got a prophecy of Christ right there. He saw, he knew. His eyes were opened to the coming of the Lord Jesus, and he knew. And you think, with a miraculous vision, especially in the Old Testament, when everybody was looking forward to the Messiah, for this man to get a glimpse that he would change. He would change. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up this parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be what? That he perish forever. He's done. The Amalekites are gone. Amalek is gone. And then he looked at the Kenites, and he took up this parable and said, strong is thy dwelling place. Thou puttest thy nest in a rock. Nevertheless, the Kenite shall be wasted, until Asher shall carry them away captive. And he took up this parable and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? And ships shall come from the coasts of Chittim, and shall afflict Asher, and shall afflict Eber, and he shall perish forever. And Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place. And Balak also went his way. So it appears now that they have what? They have parted ways. They have parted ways. Chapter 25, nothing about Balaam. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. You get to 31, he's there. There may be, but there's no conversations. They went their separate ways. But look here, this man just gave a mighty revelation. And he promised destruction for all of them. Is it true? Was this evil man speaking truth? Yes. He knows that he cannot what? He cannot curse Israel. He knows that it just takes a little bit for the Lord to make a donkey smarter than him. He knows the power of God. He knows there is a Messiah coming out of this people. And if the Messiah comes out of this people, we cannot destroy this people. He says over and over again, I cannot curse what God has not cursed. And what God has blessed, I will bless. On the surface, it looks like this man is a good man. Maybe a little ambitious, wanting some money. Maybe easy to sway, but ultimately comes back. But he has to do something here. In the next chapter, does anybody have a title or a heading of chapter 25? Anybody got, like, my Bible has titles, or not really titles, but kind of like subheadings and headings to kind of let you know what's coming? Without reading chapter 25, let's just read the first few verses.
Worships at Peor is what mine says.
Israel worships Baal of Peor in Moab. But there's something that happens first. What was it? And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit what my Bible will just say fornication with the daughters of Moab. Ooh. And they called the people, they who? Let's go. We got to make sure the they is identifiable here. And they called the people. Who's the they? Who's the last person or the last group of people we mentioned? The women, the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. It even gets so bad that you can read on down that Eleazar rose up. And what I have read is probably there is an act going on in front of the tabernacle. And what does he do? He takes the javelin and drives it through both of them. In the act, it was a horrendous act. It was an act of defiance. It was an act of idol worship. And it occurred after God's just blessed them 3 times. But this is where it gets, where you have to connect what the New Testament says about Balaam to the story of the Old Testament. Balaam has said, basically, I guess the conversation would go something like this. Listen, I cannot curse him. I cannot. Whether you want to believe me or not, whether you can blame God, I have spoken what God said. He said, but I'll tell you what you can do. He says, send your prettiest women in there. I can't do anything. God's blessed them, and God's promised that these things are going to happen. But they can make the choice to anger the Lord. I can't do it for you. He said, but this is what you need to do. That's when Revelation says he cast a what? Stumbling block. He caused Israel to stumble. And fornication, physical fornication, the Bible talks about sin being, most sin is offensive and harmful to others. But fornication and sexual immorality is harmful to what?
Body.
It is your own body. Same spiritually. We harm ourselves when we commit spiritual fornication on the Lord. That's what Israel's doing here. It is spiritual fornication. And because the act, and in every way that physical fornication is so offensive, it is magnified when it is spiritual fornication in the eyes of the Lord. He is jealous. And we'll see the plagues and things that come as a result of this. But it is because of the influence of Balaam. He says, this is what you need to do. Let's cast something that will cause them to stumble. He never spoke one heretical thing in front of the congregation. He never got up in front of them and preached lies. He preached what? The truth. He preached the truth. He told the truth. He delivered God's message. But because he wanted to get paid, he went a shady route. And he said, listen, I'm not going to tell them wrong. I'm not going to tell them they need to do this. But let's put the opportunity in front of them. See what they do. And he caused a stumbling block to fall right in front of them, and they fell immediately. To the point where you probably had, from what I've read and studied, a Hebrew man and a foreign woman at, near, in front of the tabernacle of a holy God, and the priest killed them both in the act. How vile it must have been for that to take place. And we read later that in all that Balaam spoke and prophesied, we read in, let's see, I think it's chapter 31. Where are we at here? Chapter 31. I didn't mark the place. Verse 15. And Moses said unto them, have you saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Through the counsel of Balaam. We don't ever see or hear the conversation, but we know that after all these blessings are announced, he coerces them to go in. And because of that, you have the plagues. And ultimately, it ends up hurting all the women in the Midianites. He says, kill every woman that's known a man. Kill them all. Sin is not just connected to you. Sin affects everybody. Everybody around you, good and evil. Sin affects everybody. Balaam eventually dies in the battles. He is killed. He does not make it out of this alive. But we see he is the example of false teachers. You want to bring them down? You can't bring them down by cursing them. The devil knows that he cannot bring us down by cursing us, because he can't take your soul. But he can throw stumbling blocks in front of you. He can throw temptations. He can throw everything at you to get you to fall. And in that, your sin can affect so many people around you. And even cause people to lose, maybe not their physical lives, thank goodness in our country, but their spiritual lives. What all damage came, so we are going to get finished, but what all damage came from this man realizing, I can't curse what God has blessed, but I can try to get them to sin. I can't curse them and I can't take anything from them what God won't allow. He said, but I can try to get them to do something to mess up their relationship with God. So what do you take from this? That's what that's rhetorical. What do you get from this? Has anybody got anything to add or say? I hope I did it justice by trying to get through it pretty quickly. But
as you saw, he always acted like he was going to do God's will, but he always, like Balaam, always had so much foot in the world, so he always compromised and never did God's will.
He wanted paid. No expense spared by Balak. Building the altars, the sacrifices, that all came out of Balak's pocket too. No expense spared. And he said, I can't do this for you. He said, but I can get you to do something. I can get you one thing to try. And it worked. They fell. Did they conquer Israel? No. But they did cause them to stumble and fall. But what God promised will come to pass. And thank goodness. But I had no idea that Balaam sat and saw the Lord. He saw him. And yet he still said, that's a long way off. It's a long way off. Because he says, I see him, but not near. I see him, but not now. It's a long way off. Anybody got anything?
I had always wondered why Balak didn't just kill Balaam for what he did. Because whenever you get there to the end, it looks like they just like, oh well, okay, we tried that, and they just go their separate ways. But it makes more sense for him to spare Balaam or not want to get so mad to try to kill him if Balaam offered him that other plan. You know, so I think that makes sense. I had never read that part of Revelation.
And I had heard preachers preach on the sin of Balaam. And as I was reading through it, when we were just reading, I was like, I'm waiting for it. I was waiting for this conversation to come up to say, this is what Balaam planned, and it was never there. It kind of just ends. The story ends, and then the sin begins. But later we see the evidence that a conversation took place. The council of Balaam.
It kind of lets you wonder, if you deal with the Old Testament only, which I love the Old Testament, but it is explained in the New Testament, and you can't make it without the New Testament. We wouldn't know that Lot was a righteous man.
Right.
If it weren't for the New Testament. We wouldn't know a lot of stuff about the Old Testament if it were not explained. Abraham and Hagar. In Galatians, it clearly tells us what that's all about. We don't see it. We don't get it.
I think Balaam really and truly wanted to curse Israel, but when he opened his mouth, God forced blessings out of it. He forced him to say what God wanted him to say.
And I think he knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he knew that he could not. That's why he kept going back. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Let me go back again. And finally, that third time, he just, forget it. I can't do it. I can't curse them. But I believe he wanted to as well. He wanted to. He wanted to go. He could have stopped all this if he'd have just said, I'm not going down there and dealing with that. God's blessed those people, that's it. But because he wanted to go, all this happens.
Can't block God's plan.
Nope.
There's been many that's tried it over the years.
And God knows how to, like I've said before, God knows how to work it out in the end, and he will.
We can't stop God's plan. Like Jan said, we can't, not for the ages. Can you stop his plan for your life?
Yes.
That's how Balaam won. I can't stop Matthew. I can't curse Matthew. I can't make him do anything. He ultimately what? He can by the decisions he made. That is what Balaam has figured out here. I can't do it. Let's make them decide to do it on their own. And that's the way the devil is today. He can't take your soul, but he can make sure you don't take anybody else with you. He can make you so, what do you call it? Ineffective, unreliable, lazy, whatever it may be.
Well, he even hindered Paul.
He hindered Paul from going, where did he want to go?
Rome.
Rome. He wanted to go, and the devil hindered him. Sometimes God kept him from going, but sometimes it was the devil. Look at Job.
Yeah. Poor Job.
The choice was whose? To curse God. Was Job's. Job could have. And messed up his future. Anybody else? I think I may venture from Numbers next week, but I just wanted to go through a few of those. And
You're doing communion next week.
yes.
That's why it's so important for us as Christians to to stay in the will of God and to do and to say His will, because if we don't, we cause others to stumble. We cause we Christians to stumble, or we prevent other people maybe from coming to Christ because they're watching you. They're always watching you and listening to you. And, you know, you might say, Lord, forgive me for whatever I've done. They might not know that you asked for forgiveness. And they say, well, if she's a Christian, you know how that goes. And so that's why we're mandated to fear the Lord.
And even if they know that he has asked forgiveness, they still can't forget what you did.
Exactly.
They don't understand that.
She said, important to stay in the will. It is important to stay in the Word.
Yeah.
You can't, I would tell kids all the time, it doesn't matter what you believe, how strong it is, you will fall. Or mess up. I won't say, fall from grace or fall from salvation, but you will falter without this.
Amen.
Without knowing what's out there. You will. It is a promise. It command meditate day and night. It's powerful. And two, if we're reading this, what are we not doing? Something else? Something else bad?
We need that right there written in our inward parts and in our hearts.
That's right.
And for the Spirit to bring it to remembrance. And they never, like I said in Sunday school this morning, they had tables of stone, but they forgot it. They'd read it and they'd forget it.
Yep.
And when Moses come down, they said, we will do that. But did they?
No.
To this day, they haven't done it.
Like you said, they got to do it. We got to be doers of the word,
Yep.
not hearers only. That's how you remember it.
It is how you remember it. Doing it. Weary not in doing good. Weary not in doing good. Anybody else? Well, y'all haven't left yet, so. Good to see Miss Martha here tonight. Very good. There was I'll end with this. I can remember when Tom came back, Mom came back. And I think I had been out here a couple times in the youth, but I didn't know who anybody was. And not that everybody, you know how it is. There seemed to be something special with Mom and Martha. And I'd go, Mom, who is that nice lady out there? Who's that one that always talks to us? To me, it's hard to remember some names out here. I like to have never got Charlene, Loretta, and Carolyn straight. Still, I was like, which one is that? I know they're sisters, but which one? But it's good to see you, Miss Martha. And thank you for that. I'll always remember that. Ronnie, are you awake?
A little bit. For my age.
I hadn't heard him tonight.
He's resting his eyes right now.
It's rough working.
That job will take a little of the zap out of it.
He got a job?
Especially
Yeah.
Yeah, he works over there.
to this week coming up, I think.
What are you doing?
So, delivering auto parts. Come out to Advance Auto. We need your business.
I think I'm Scotty's #1 customer out there with all the vehicles we have. So
He does. I've delivered them.
I know I don't want any more car parts. I don't want any more. All right. Anybody else? All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day you've given us. Lord, thank you for our health and, Lord, and everything that had to go right for us to be right here today and everything in our bodies that had to go right for us to be healthy, Lord. Thank you for all that you do and all that your mighty hand keeps in order. Lord, I pray that you be with us, and I hope that you help us to see that it was not Balaam's choice to curse Israel. He couldn't do it. It was their own choice, and help us to learn from that. And it is our own choices that we make that determine our futures. Lord, help us to make the right choices. Help us to stay in the Word and see what choices out there that are wrong and which ones that are right. Help us to stay focused on that, Lord. Help us to stay in the Word and want to be in your Word.
Yes.
Put that desire in our hearts more and more every day. Lord, I pray that you be with us as we leave this place. Lord, and bless those that are here and want to be here and come and are faithful. Lord, I pray a blessing on those. Lord, I pray that you be with us as we leave. Lord, protect us, keep us safe, and bring us back again. And prepare our hearts for whatever comes this week, that we may handle it in the way you would have us to. I ask that you be with us in all things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.